Recently, there's been a question circling my mind and plaguing my waking hours. Do fictional characters exist? I knew I had to get to the bottom of this question, I just didn't know where to start. But after some pondering, I knew I had to start with philosophy, because this is a philosophical question, right? Or is it? More on that later. So I took my question to the philosophy forums with gusto, excitement, and a thirst for knowledge. And immediately, I was hit with opposition in the form of Terrapin Station. No, I don't know how anyone could possibly be stumped by this. And yet I was still stumped, but now I felt dejected, cold, hopeless. And then I realized that's just how I feel every day, so I forged on with my research. And that's when I found the starting piece of this whole puzzle. There is actually a philosophical concept that deals with this exact discussion, and it's called fictional realism. So there's no doubt that when a writer creates a non-existent object or character, that character or object or place has a life beyond just the scope of the page. You know, we've all heard writers talk about the writing process and how, at a certain stage, the characters just start writing themselves. Have you ever wanted to go hunting in Forks with the Cullens, or study at Hogwarts, or go on a date with Patrick Bateman because the psychopaths in your own life just aren't hitting the spot anymore? Fictional realists argue that all those people and places do actually exist. Fictional realism is the philosophical position that fictional entities exist as part of the fabrics that make up reality. So to talk about fictional realism, we do have to take a little detour and talk about everyone's favorite, existentialism. Because to consider fictional realism, it's necessary to have a definition of existence to serve as a basis for comparison. There is some argument about whether the term non-existent object is in itself a contradiction, for if it is an object, it exists, right? Fiction requires us to assume that existence is selective. The Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy explains, this view entails, among other things, that to say, for instance, that some white elephants exist, is to say that some white elephants have the property of existence, or to put it the other way around, that not all white elephants are non-existent, a consequence that might strike some as strange. Modal realism is also a viewpoint that favors the existence of fictional objects. One of its most well-known supporters was the philosopher David Lewis, who argued that actuality is indexical. In other words, like our white elephants, the realism of fictional objects can vary based on our understanding of them. If there was ever a book meant as a parable for modal realism, it's Alice in Wonderland. Theorists have long argued that Lewis Carroll, a published mathematician and logician, based much of his famous book on philosophical concepts. People hold objects without physical reference to be true all the time. For example, the United States is no more a physical object than Middle Earth. It may be a country with real people and real places and a government and a currency, etc. But what makes it the United States is an agreed upon ideal. Otherwise, it would just be a hunk of earth. No one would debate or argue that the dotted lines on a map represent real physical boundaries between the states, and yet they have no physical reference. So there we go, problem solved. Fictional characters exist, right? No. One issue with modal logic is that while actual worlds are referred to with the possibility operator, fictional worlds are not. Simply put, one cannot simply walk into Mordor. Whereas if you walk into the United States, your feet will be on the ground, and you can go and you can buy a Yoo-hoo or a Twinkie or whatever you guys eat over there. Actual physical worlds don't need to depend on us for their existence. Another major criticism of Lewis's theories is that they are vulnerable to Occam's razor, my favorite philosophical razor, a principle which favors the simplest solution to a hypothesis in the absence of certainty. And there is no certainty where fictional worlds are concerned. So I decided to tackle this question from another angle, a metaphysical angle. So yeah, let's talk about the multiverse. The multiverse is a world full of endless potential, multiple parallel universes spinning in synchronicity, and the possibility of alternate, powerful, seemingly better versions of ourselves. The multiverse is a term that scientists use to describe the idea that beyond the observable universe, other universes may exist as well. An important thing to note is the multiverse contains infinite realities. Therefore, there must be infinite realities where characters who exist as fiction in some realities exist as actual entities in others. Incidentally, the same is true for the opposite. there must be alternate realities in which we are fictional characters. So somewhere out there in an alternate universe, there is a guy called Harry Potter reading a book about a fictional character called Sky Pankhurst. Well, Mr. Potter, I hope you like unreliable narrators. Hugh Everett III was the American physicist who first proposed this many worlds interpretation of quantum physics, which he termed his relative state formulation. Other famous smart people who also believe in the multiverse theory include Elon Musk and Neil deGrasse Tyson. So basically, if you believe in the multiverse theory, by extension, you have to believe that fictional characters are real, just not in our universe. Okay, so we're getting closer to the bottom of this. Let's go to part 3, neuroscience. When we read, the brain does not make a real distinction between reading about an experience and actually living it. Whether reading or experiencing it, the same neurological regions are stimulated. In a 2006 study published in the journal Neuroscience, researchers asked participants to read words with strong odor associations, along with neutral words, while their brains were being scanned by a functional magnetic resonance imaging (fMRI) machine. When the subjects looked at the words perfume and coffee, their primary olfactory cortex lit up. When they saw the words chair and key, this region remained dark. The way the brain handles metaphors has also received extensive study. A team of researchers from Emory University reported in Brain and Language that when subjects in their laboratory read a metaphor involving texture, the sensory cortex responsible for perceiving texture through touch became active, while phrases matched for meaning, like the singer had a pleasing voice and he had strong hands, did not. Researchers have discovered that words describing motion also stimulate regions of the brain distinct from language processing areas. And there is evidence that just as the brain responds to depictions of smells and textures and movements as if they were the real thing, so it treats the interactions among fictional characters as something like real-life social encounters. So this definitely explains why, we feel like we're falling in love with a fictional character, or why we cry when our favorite character dies. In other words, this sort of parasocial relationship that we have with fictional characters. Now, okay, we covered a lot of ground, and we maybe had a few existential crises along the way, but we still don't have any definite conclusion. And I'm not someone who does well with uncertainty. So let's end the video with some cold, hard facts that we can all agree on. Are fictional characters real? To our brain, yes, they are very much real. You know what else is real? The influence that they have over us and the world. For instance, Sherlock Holmes. He continues in this present day to affect and have influence over us and the world and media. Is it Sir Arthur Conan Doyle that is having that effect? No. It's the character that he has created. So yeah, I don't know. This was a video. This was certainly a video. So guys, let me know in the comments what ridiculous questions you want me to attempt to answer next.